This is something that a lot of people don't know is I started YouTube back when the site was fresh. When the site, I think the site came up, 2006? I started 2007. My very first channel was called Yeah Mike. Yeah Mike in 2007. I was in high school. I graduated in 09, so this was 07. I created this channel called Yeah Mike, and I had two videos that were on the channel. I still remember to this day. One was, I was in this econ class, I think. Was it econ? And I wanted to expose Walmart, whether it was good or bad on capitalism. We had a discussion in school about capitalism, and I wanted to do this. So I created this just shitty trailer in Windows Movie Maker about Walmart, trying to figure out how I was going to film in there. And I was actually on the side of Walmart and how they were like good for society and whatnot. That was one of the first things I ever did. And the other one was kind of a spy movie that I did and it failed. Anyway, I had started up numerous other channels, and see, the thing about me is, I'm a really overweight, fat piece of shit in the first place, but growing up, I had one real job. I was a dishwasher for about a year, and that job fucking sucked. It 100% sucked. But and then I just started working online. I got to work for a games media company that ran online turn-based mafia games and biker games. I ran TrueMobster.com, Biker Crimes. Can't even remember the other ones. And that was for about a good 2 years. And then I still worked for him, and then kind of did web design in high school. And I always wanted to do, I just wanted to do YouTube. I kept trying to do YouTube. In college, I tried it. I tried to do it with a school. I was trying to get good camera equipment. That was the problem, though. I never had good camera equipment. And finally, on YouTube, when it came to, trying to get famous, I created 3 channels. Fun with Osama, Fun at IKEA, and InvestaWeb It. There were 3 series. Fun at IKEA was where you go to IKEA, fuck around. We had guys that would shit. It's still up to this day, I think. YouTube.com/Fun at IKEA. And like the shittiest edited videos. I mean, I didn't even know how to edit videos at the time because I didn't have any software. So I was uploading these videos, trying to get famous, and in the tags I would put like Sexy Phil, Family Guy, comedy, trying to get noticed. And it didn't work. So when I see these people complaining nowadays, and they're like, "Why am I not famous, Tubby? Why aren't you helping me?" I'm like, shut the fuck up. Honestly, like, I love my fans. I swear to God, I have got fucking awesome fans who, through everything, are there when I say something about my family. They're there wishing us well. They're there downloading my podcasts, following me on Twitter, liking my videos, sharing. I mean, my audience is fucking great. But the people that are just out there always looking for a handout, like, I didn't do that. Ever. When I was doing those YouTube channels, I had proposed to one of the guys, the guy I worked for. I was like, hey, I have these 3 ideas. InvestaWeb It, and I came up with schedules and episode ideas, and I had a buddy that would pretend to be Osama. And it was like a comedy bit, and it worked, and he pledged $500, and he actually, he pledged us $500. And he sent us the money. We went and got haircuts. We looked like Osama. We got props. We were shooting these videos. And I still had the shittiest camera equipment. We contemplating buying one. We never did. But then it got to the point where I was getting so pissed. Nothing was working. We kind of said, fuck it. And that was about 2008. 2009, I started Frequency Films, which was an idea I had with a buddy because I wanted to film this series called Letting Go, which was a screenplay that I had scripted for TV. It was for like webisodes. It was called Letting Go, and it was really heartbreaking and dramatic, and I had this scene planned out in my head with the guy running towards the girl, and she's on the phone, and she's in a bathroom, and she's drinking, and there's pills, and when he finally gets there, her hand's over the anyway. And it just, nothing happened. And then eventually, finally, the guy I was working for bought us my first camera that was good quality, and I remember this to this day. I was so excited. It was the Sony HDR SR10, and I was so fucking excited. I was so happy. Like, we get 1080p. We shot this series with Frequency Films called The Passenger Seat, and you can still watch episodes to this day. It wasn't edited because I still didn't have editing software in like 2008, 2009. It's youtube.com/frequency films. It's like frequency, but with no F. And I was still not getting views, and I was getting pissed. I'm like, we're putting out some good shit. And then people would fucking hate on me, and I tried doing hobo shit for college. Nothing would work, and I was doing everything. I was filming videos. I was coming up with ideas. I was scripting. I wanted to do this, and this was about the time that Machinima Respawn started to take off. Gameplay videos. It was back when Hutch, Drifter, guys like that, Opponent Star, Wings that were on Respawn, and it was a big deal, and I was so excited, and I wanted to do it, and I had one of my good friends to this day who I met on Xbox, and since then I flew down to Florida twice and chilled with her, and Anaja, if you're listening, and it was a great time. I went down to Florida. But before that, I had wanted to really do YouTube, and I didn't have a capture card, and I was using the HDR SR10 pointed at my TV screen, let alone mind you, and but the way I did it is you couldn't tell because I would frame it out just right, and I don't know if you can still find gameplay to this day, but it was a bitch because those files were like 1.8 gig, and I didn't have any converting software. It was before I knew of the glory of Adobe Premiere. Sony Vegas, fuck you, hands down, fuck you. I hate that software. But Premiere, it has been a lifesaver. But before then, I didn't know how to do any of that. So I was uploading 1.8 gig videos that were like 3 minutes, and I was fucking stupid. I really was. I had no idea what I was doing. And then that didn't go anywhere. So then 2009, I started X Fatal Sparks. And this is what would be my number one biggest fuck up of all time. Was the only time I did self-promotion on X Fatal Sparks was on Hutch's Facebook page and the Machinima Respawn app. And the only reason I would do it on Hutch's Facebook page is because I thought he said at one point, if you want a channel, link it to me or something. And I posted on his Facebook page about my channel. I was like, here's my channel, blah, blah, blah. And Sly Foxhound, who went on to be Sly Foxhound, commented on my channel and said, dude, I love your voice. I saw you from Hutch's page, blah, blah, blah. You got a sub. And I remember I didn't know who he was. And I didn't apparently know how to use the fucking reply button because I said thanks, but I didn't reply to him. And to this day, I go back. I'm like, that's my biggest fuck up. I impressed Sly Fox at the time, and now I'm fucked. This channel's not going anywhere. I was doing Call of Duty videos. It wasn't working. So finally, Anaja, who I went down and stayed with, I did her website for her company. And in return, I bought a Hauppauge PVR. And this is where things would start to go off. X Fatal Sparks, the channel started. I was doing all those things. And I was only getting like 50 views a video. Call of Duty Black Ops released. And I got in a lobby with DNB Ooze. And I was so fucking excited. I was like, DNB Ooze? He's like a YouTuber. Oh my God, I was so excited. Like, I was fangasming over that lobby. Like, I was pretty excited. And I uploaded a 5-in-1 bomber clip. And some people were like, well, that's gay. 5-in-1 bomber. Some people are like, cool or whatever. But that channel did nothing. And people don't understand that. I did that for over a year. And nothing fucking worked. So it's getting to the point where it's like not October yet. It's August, I want to say, of 2010. And Respawn is getting filled up. And they're not taking any submissions. The app is like full. And I was doing everything I could to promote it. And I finally was about to say, fuck it. And that's when Machinima Sports was really taking off. And I saw some people's plans where once you got into Machinima, you could switch over. You could go from Machinima Sports to Machinima Respawn. So any Machinima Sports directors that are out there, unless you only do sports in your channel at the time, were fucking around because you wanted to get on for the other channels. Looking at you, Jevin. I love you, Jevin. There was a bunch of us guys that did that. And so it wasn't working. Finally, November comes around, October, November 2010, and I wanted to start getting into it, but I didn't know what to call myself. And I was like, you know what, let's go create a new gamer tag, because I was done with Sparks or whatever, and it's cycling through all these names. And the funny thing about it was, as it's cycling through all the names, there were some really fucking stupid ones. And finally, it comes on Teaming Tubby Emu. Microsoft Xbox name generator. I should be paying royalty checks to. I honestly should. It came up with Teaming Tubby Emu, and I right then and there, because I'm a guy that I did tech, I did web. You know, I was never a big believer in Facebook and Twitter, because my belief was, if I want somebody to know my thoughts, I can just create that website. And a lot of things have changed since HTML5 and all that, so I haven't kept up to date with my web design skills or anything, but I was never a big believer in Facebook. I still to this day don't use my personal Facebook. I use it for my Tubby Emu one with 9,000 people, and my personal one with 200-some people. I don't use. I don't. Very often. And so we did that. I was all set up. I was ready to go. I created the Facebook, the Twitter, the YouTube for Teaming Tubby Emu. And I thought, well, I'm going to need Tubby Emu 2, so I took Tubby Emu in case. I don't remember when. I think in January. But in December, I created a prediction sports video for TLC, and I sent this. I applied to Kayvon. If you guys know who Kayvon is, he was the old sports manager for Machinima Sports, and so Kayvon, I sent him a message and I didn't get a reply, and I'm sitting there like freaking out, waiting. A week goes by. I remember to this day, I was in the college library at my school, and I get this email from this guy named Mike Carr, and I'm like, who the fuck is this? I was supposed to be talking to Kayvon. Mike Carr, for those of you who don't know, is Optic Diesel. And he's like, hey, man, have you signed a contract? All right, here's me that I just submitted this video, to their email, to hear back, to get a partnership, whatever, to post on their channels. And he's like, do you already have a contract? And I'm like, no. He's like, the next email is a contract. Like, he's like, he didn't even watch my video or anything. He was like, did you have a contract? And I'm like, no. And so finally he watches. He's like, oh, that's a pretty good video, man. And then he gave me some criticism once I signed the Machinima contracts. I couldn't have like a black border because it would kind of get hidden in the video. So I had to switch it up to like a blue. And you can still find it to this day. My very first ever Machinima, or my first ever WWE video, I think, was on YouTube. Because the only reason I originally created Teaming Tubby Emu when I made the Sparks channel, afterwards when I was switching out the Sparks name, was because I had gotten Black Ops early and I had posted footage early. So this channel could have got taken down a long time ago. So I wasn't really using Teaming Tubby Emu for anything until this Machinima partnership came around. And once that Machinima partnership came around, it was still not for your own personal channel. So it took me a year to get 3,000 subs. It took me a year plus, I think. I was starting out, and posting on Machinima Sports got me 20 subs every time I posted. And then I started creating content, and then I did WWE, and I was really starting to get going. And the one thing before fucking Smalls came around and started the Small system, I would do these match simulations. It's the first thing I did through Machinima Sports, and I would do full pay-per-view cards. And so what happened is people looking for the real content would get into it. And I'm going to save this for the second chapter, so to speak. But what would happen is, I got into WWE, I started doing the things properly, and my channel started taking off. But it still took a year plus out for my channel to grow. And I think that's the hardest thing for people to understand, is how long it took me to get that big of a following. I mean, it took months just to even, get my channel going. And I didn't get my first, couple hundred subs until after 5 months. And that was a long journey for me. I was pissed off. And this was at the time when Smalls 99 was bigger than me at 2,000 and some subs. I was trying to chase him. Yard was bigger. Tony Pizza Guy was bigger. And we were all trying to chase him. And I went for it. I had committed myself after getting that contract in December. That's when I had a girlfriend from October, I think, until like March. And I would run into problems. She's like, "You want to do something?" I'm like, "I got to make a video." And I'm such a fucking nerd that I chose YouTube and gaming over, a woman sometimes. And it's, maybe one of the bigger mistakes I made. But things ended up drifting apart anyway. And so I started doing YouTube full time. And I wasn't making much at first because, you wouldn't get those checks from Machinima for 3 months. Like, you were behind a whole 3 months later, you would get your check for 3 months of videos. So it was like 6 months later. But in February of 2011, they started partnering channels, right? So I was one of the very, very, very first people to get partnered in 2011. Luckily, I'd had a contact. He got me signed up right away. I know Tony Pizza Guy ended up having to wait 4 or 5 months to get partnered, and that fucking sucked because he was waiting forever. I remember him being like, "Dude, can you get him in?" And that's when they kind of stopped taking people because they had partnered with so many channels. And I was making a $2 CPM, and I was so fucking excited. And my first check came April. I remember it to this day. I was so excited. I was in Eau Claire, Wisconsin at a gas station. I was at my family's in Eau Claire. And I go into the store, and my phone rings at the time. My iPhone vibrates, and it's like, you have $90, I think, or $80, or whatever the hell the first check was, and or 100 and something. I don't remember what it was. It's like, here you go. And I was like, oh, shit, yeah. And I'm like, Mom, I'm going to the gas station. And so I go to the gas station, and I, bought some stuff, and then I took some money out of the ATM and gave it to my mom for, rent or something. And that was my first check. And I didn't start making money to live off of until December 2011. It took a whole year to get up to where I was making enough money where, because I was still living at home, it was a job. I was making, a good amount of money. And this was through I sacrificed everything. I put in every single thing I had into this. I dedicated my life to it. I went full force because of what happened in the summer of 2011 is why I started going full force. And that was a touching time in my life. My dad, who is in bad health, always has been, has got diabetes, and, is not supposed to be drinking sugared pop, and he was a video game technician, so he would work at bars and shit, and he'd be working from 6 p.m. to 2 a.m., and he's out at the bar crowd and eating shit food, and he was never taking care of himself, and he has sleep apnea, and he wasn't wearing his mask. Ended up in the hospital. We found him not breathing, and we didn't know, and they kept him on life support, helping him breathe. They're keeping him under because they didn't know how long he was under for without oxygen. So they kept him sedated, knocked out completely, and his blood was at 30 some degree. They had cooled it down Celsius. And it was that was one of the hardest times in YouTube, because I remember making that video for longtime fans, my vlog at the hospital where I'm talking about it. And another thing, though, is I'm sitting there, and this is my job. This is what I do. I was doing for money. So I remember bringing my Xbox and planning, in the hospital. I had my Xbox set up and my capture card set up in the hospital. And I remember going to my grandma's for the week. I stayed there, and I had everything set up in the basement because it was a job. Everybody says, do this or do that. Well, my dad always said, I was just pissed off, do what you got to do. So I was focusing on work. Things were going good. I think that was when MX vs. ATV came out. I remember playing that game. I was renting stuff from a family video, and I was still trying to keep focus on my channel. And this would go on to be a huge debacle where he was in the hospital, and, he would go on to have a little bit of brain damage so he's not himself anymore. But we didn't really know any of that at the time. 2 years down the road, we now know that stuff. But at the time, it was, he's in the hospital for this. But then what happened is that as they were waiting for tests down in, when he was in the hospital, he developed this massive bed sore. And because of it, he ended up staying in the hospital 6 extra months. And he was in the hospital till about November 2011. So my whole dedication that summer, I was on food stamps. I was eating ramen noodles. I'm a 300-plus pound guy, and I'm fucking eating ramen noodle, like just shit food. Those 29-cent burritos at Aldi's, just, so my family, because, I didn't want my mom to buy food. So I said, just buy me ramen, buy me the burritos, and I'll be happy, with a case of soda. So that's literally what I would do. And I fucking hated it. I remember making videos, and all I would do, I'd go down and make some ramen. I would, choke it down. Pizza rolls, things like that, really cheap stuff where I loved it at the time. But now I'm so sick of it because of those months of, eating food stamps. And, it was one of the hardest times in my life, and family wasn't helping. The first month or two, we had family helping, and then they just, shut us down, even though, it is what it is. And so it was on me and my mom, and my dad was still in the hospital. And I was like, fuck this. I'm not screwing around anymore. I'm fucking going nose to the grindstone. And I started going ham. I was making videos, I had a system in place where before this fucking small system bullshit ever happened is where I started off making a simulation for the pay-per-view. Well, I noticed, or if I would make a match for every match on the card and upload it with a thumbnail with a logo and everything, people would be looking for the actual match, and then it was getting views. So my channel was only, up until the release of WWE 12, I only had 3,000 subs, which was in October 2011. So by October 2011, I only had 3,000 subs. I had celebrated 3,000 in August or something. And so I was a very, very small channel at the time. But I had gotten lucky. I was able to get a copy of WWE 12 early, and THQ at the time, Marcus Stevenson was the community manager. They didn't have a rule against uploading early. You just couldn't commentate or talk about what was on screen. So I was able to upload shitload of gameplay footage early, and my channel blew up. And I instantly became one of the bigger channels, 15,000 plus subs. I got very lucky. And, things started taking off. So because of that, and then I think Machinima was running a bonus for the holidays or something where, so my first check when it came in December, it was enough to finally live off of, after a year, 4 years of doing it on YouTube, trying to become a success, 1 year doing it on my channel currently that I was on. I finally got enough money where I could say, hey, I could pay my bills, help my family. And this was nose to the grindstone. I was, sacrificing things to make YouTube videos, and that sounds so stupid, but, I was so sick of being on food stamps. People look at it as, oh, I fucking hate this, seeing comments about money horror and shit like this. I'm like, first of all, you don't have to watch the video, but second, I was on fucking food stamps. If making a YouTube video allows me to help out my family or not be on food stamps, fuck you, I'm going to do it. And I'm sorry if you're a loyal fan, but this is uncensored, this is on, whatever. Fuck those people who say anything about money. Look what the media does for money, attention. That's the kind of world we live in. And I'm completely against it. Maybe, making a video on somebody that died or, something like that, that's different, but pay-per-view, things like that, making videos with thumbnails, things like that. It's YouTube. Who cares? In the realm of life, does it affect you in any way? No. So I was pretty, pissed off on this rise. So I'm starting to rise after just a tremendous amount of shit. We tried, was it 2000 and... WWE 12 came out and our channels were booming. That was actually the time when I got introduced to CM Pulse. Yeah. A lot of people give me shit for not helping people. CM Pulse was the original guy that I had helped. And I want to tell you a little bit about, where things kind of came from. And here's people's, things. Oh, people don't want to help these people because they don't want them to outgrow them. I have never had that philosophy or worry. This is what I hate about small channels that try to give you bullshit. Any of those smaller channels, and I'm going to shoot an interview on you here just because I think it's complete fucking nonsense and unprofessionalism. Tom Cushing, Jed's World, like those guys, they're okay guys. I mean, I personally, I don't have a problem with them. People think I hate them. I don't have a problem with anybody. But if you're not going to act professional, you're going to bitch about what other people do instead of worrying about yourself. At the time, I was just like, I was fucking over it. And, our audiences had started to develop a rivalry against each other. And this is what people don't realize at the time. I was working with people, and then I started eventually last year, I kind of went through a phase where I wasn't really working with anybody or helping anybody. And, people were bitching and complaining about it. I'm jumping way too far ahead right now. Anyway, so leading up to helping CM Pulse. Sorry, I got off topic a little bit right there. I remember, people complaining about not helping, and I remember our audiences, myself, Yard, and we capture the frag. We started to have a dissension when WWE 12 coverage started happening, we would all race to post first. And eventually our audiences started hating each other, and we would see hate comments going between, it's just, it's my Yard and Tony Pizza Guy, people saying this guy's better and this guy's better and this guy is better. And, at the time we're all doing our thing. I remember me and Tony made a pact that once we got to X amount of money, Tony would quit his job and I would do it full time. And Tony used to do Stanley Steamer. And I remember us talking to each other, and I've been through a lot with Tony Pizza Guy. I've fought. I've not talked to him for months. I love the man to death. I consider him a good friend. We went through a lot where we would talk and just talk about how shit sucked. Welfare, he fucking hated his job. Absolutely hated it. He had shit going on. And we had said, once we got to this level of money, we could quit our jobs. And we went through the trenches together. Me and Tony, we would compare checks. Remember, we used to buy each other pizzones. Me and Tony were good buddies, and, things started to kind of go awry. Smiles kind of started, there was some shit that happened eventually. But we eventually get to see on Pulse in December, I think, of 2011, or January 2012. And Pulse had messaged me, and I saw his stuff. I'm like, damn, this dude is why there's two dudes in the history of my YouTube career that made me go, holy fuck, I love this. And the guys that have requested for me to view their stuff. This is honest to God. A lot of guys come to me for promotion, and they create some cool stuff. Don't get me wrong. The SVR simulations guys, you have guys like Project 9 Gaming, or, One-on-One Gaming makes some awesome stuff. There's a lot of directors that make awesome stuff, but at the time, Pulse's commentary blew me away. He sounded so fucking professional. I think he had the blue microphone. He came off the bat not sounding like, because at the time, everybody that was messaging you trying to get famous had microphones where you'd be talking like, today guys, it was like the shittiest thing ever, and they were recording with a potato on the screen and wondering why you weren't shouting them out. I mean, I remember getting submissions of videos, literally the dude's pointing his camera, his iPod camera, the shittier one, at his 13-inch TV saying, Tubby, would you promote me? And I'm not trying to be a dick here, because like I said, I love my fans. But as a guy who, you have to sit back and wonder, would you watch that? Would you honestly watch somebody with the worst camera quality, horrible audio quality, sit there playing a 13-inch screen that's shaking, that's color changing? I mean, it's not entertaining. And the biggest debate that me and Tony would get into trouble with when we'd give people advice is, you don't need HD to be successful. Bullshit. There's 3 directors to this day I know that didn't have HD and that were still successful. And 3 of those channels are DSP. So DSP is the one exception because he used a camera. Hold on, I need to take a drink. So anyway, enough of that. We get up to CM Pulse. He blew me away. So on my live streams, I had said, we're not doing this, or we'll do this once CM Pulse reaches 500 subs. We all got together. Oh, excuse me. Like I said, uncensored, uncut, unreviewed. We all got together, And we promoted the shit out of him. He gets 500 subs. And then we start working together. And then eventually shit just falls apart. And I don't know if, there's a lot of bullshit that went on about me and Smalls. And a lot of shit that went down. And, I don't want to bring up necessarily any of that personal stuff because I really never had anything against Smalls. There was a couple things he did that I felt like he was shafting me and I got pissed about it. But everybody, I wasn't disowning anybody. I wasn't, we were subtweeting all the time and that kind of shit. And people see that subtweeting shit and they think you're mad. Half the time I was tweeting, I was never mad. I wasn't upset. I was fucking around and people would take this as Tubby's doing a rampage and none of that happened. But once CM Pulse kind of came into the fold, that's when things started to go downhill. That's when we all started to have dissension. It was after Pin for the Win, which Pin for the Win, for people who didn't know, Pin for the Win was this charity event that I came up with, and I pitched the idea to Tony and Yard, and we all kind of fell in love with it. We set a date for January 7th. We talked to THQ, and they were going to donate a copy. Machinima Sports was going to donate Tony's chair that he won. And we had Gamer, Grub, and Playclaw, and it was going to be a good time. Ghost Robo, who's one of my best friends on YouTube, probably my best buddy on YouTube, actually, is donated like $100 right off the bat, and our goal was $1,000. So he kickstarted it. We were raising money for Child's Play charity, which is a great charity. I love it. And, we were getting donations trickling in. We were supposed to have a King of the Ring tournament with WTF, which is a show me and Smalls had. And there's going to be like a whole other chapter on Smalls, so I'm going to save that part. And we had this, I don't know. It was a great event. It was going strong. I think we went for like 7 hours that day. But what pushed it over the top and made it actually happen was Tony Pizza Guy brought in Donkey. And that was Video Game Donkey, and he had a big channel. At the time, I think he had like 50, 100,000 subs, something like that. It was before he really started to blow up. And he came in, and people flocked in, and we got over 1,300 people on the stream. We ended up raising like $1,200, $1,300. And to that day, is still one of my greatest accomplishments, knowing that, I set out everything, planned that event, and we raised $1,300. And that $1,300 was just fantastic. I was so proud of that. And, so I had planned to do it this year. And, things just didn't, ended up happening. But after Pin for the Win, what had kind of happened was things started to go downhill because I had been working with Smalls for a couple months now, and we had pitched all these ideas because he was on Respawn and I wasn't, and he let me come on and do a commentary with him, and I still remember it was on not Havana, but one of the outside maps, and it was like a gun game or something like that. And we're commentating, and the video went over okay. It got like 23,000 views or something like that. And we came up with this ninja diffusing series because we were both good at ninja diffusing in Black Ops, and we were going to create this series. We had recorded a bunch of stuff, and he wanted me to edit the footage and send it to him because we wanted to upload it. But I wanted to make it more of a tutorial, more of a on-screen graphics, and I didn't really have anybody to do those graphics. So I was like, I don't want to half-ass this. I don't want to just put this up where it's just us talking over gameplay of Ninja Diffuse. Like, I want to make it, I want to make it look good. Well, that kind of pissed Smalls off because I think we blew a perfect opportunity because a couple months down the road, some dude came along and did the Ninja Diffusing series. Had we done it, it would have been huge because Ninja Diffusing was just big on YouTube in the first place. And we had Machinima Respawn, and to this day, I only posted it on sports, and look at all the guys he posted on Respawn, Realm that blew up. And I passed up so many opportunities on my way up to the top that I didn't take the easy way to grow. A lot of people think I did. Besides posting WWE 12 early, I never did anything that got me an instant boom in views. One of the things that I was most proud about was, back in the day, I'm gonna have to pick this up in the second part.